Hey everybody. This is Today is Thursday, January 16th. Welcome. This is ANC 5D's monthly Zoning and Development Committee meeting. We have just one presentation on the agenda this evening, but before we jump into there, I just want to give a real quick summary of some upcoming BZA cases. Let me have a quick look here. So on the near-term docket, we've got a BZA case 21214. It's for a rare addition project at 1702 Lyman Place. The ANC 5D already voted to support that. No further action required for ANC 5D. They have their hearing coming up on January 29th. Another BZA case 21226. That's at 1206 Maple Street Northeast. That's to construct a third-story rear addition, basement conversion of the house, single-family, two-family. They presented at our December 2024 meeting. They have their hearing coming up on February 12th. There was some feedback provided. They have not yet presented to the full ANC, so I don't know if they have reached out to, right now in tonight's meeting, we've got, I see Commissioner Rhodes and Commissioner McCrae attending. They probably will be reaching out to you to present soon, but I think they got we provide some feedback that they probably need to fix some things because despite how small their project was, they were asking for like 6 areas of zoning relief, which is a lot. Normally you would see that for a large project. So um, next project coming up is there's BZ case 21220 for 1154 Moore Street. They have a hearing coming up on February 26th. So they'll be reaching out to you soon to get a vote for the full ANC. I understand some neighbors are concerned with that project, but I don't think any have submitted letters one way or the other into the case record. I do know that the next door neighbor for the 1154 case, I believe they were submitting for party status in opposition, but I don't know if that's gone in yet. Another BZA case is what we're going to talk about tonight is BZA case 21223 for 1220 Mount Olivet. And could describe it, but we have actually the owner of the property here to discuss it. So I will let you take it away. So we have John Miller, right?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Okay, I promoted you to co-host. You can share screen. You can present as you see fit. I'm going to
Okay.
turn off my video.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for joining us. I know I appreciate you sticking with us while Mr. Horgan worked through that technical issue. Um, Thank you all for being here. So we don't have a huge crowd tonight, which is I'm kind of grateful because it's much easier to present like that. Because y'all, if you'd like to interrupt me at any time, please do. I apologize if I don't see raised hands and things like that. I don't spend a lot of time using Zoom as part of day-to-day business, but I will do my best and hope you guys can bear with me as I try to use it. Um, Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate that. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. Let's see if I can make that work. Okay. Can you see my screen? Let's see here.
And yes.
Okay,
Yes, I
great.
can as well.
Okay, great. And you can see me advancing the slides, hopefully.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I've had issues with that in the past. Okay, let me get to the top of it. Just one
I
second.
think we're seeing the presenter view right now.
Oh,
Or what's on the screen is not the full. Sometimes on PowerPoint you have to go down and tell it to some button somewhere to press.
yeah. Let's see if I can sort that out here. I did warn you guys. I'm glad I said that. Um, let's see. Let's see if I can. Here we go. About how about that? Did that do it?
Yeah, I think. Oh, it's went back to it again. It's weird. I
No.
always forget. There's a like.
Let's see here. Well, if it
Is
doesn't
this
work,
is this a PowerPoint or a PDF?
it is a PowerPoint. I probably can convert it
PowerPoint.
to,
I always forget the button. There's something you have to basically take. You have to tell it you're in presenting mode or something. Um,
yeah. Let's see. How about that? Is that better?
I think so. We'll know when you click the next slide.
Better?
Yes, you're good. You're good.
Great. Okay. Again, thank you guys for bearing with me and for your patience. You're very kind. So, yeah, we're all here tonight to talk about, or I'm here to present about this project, 1220 Mount Olivet Road, Northeast. This is at the really the top end of the of your ANC district. Um, a lot of history here. So Kevin will tell you we actually came and presented. It's not quite been a year, but early middle 2024. And we presented a version of the project. It's very similar to what you'll see tonight. Um, so again, I don't think either of you commissioners have seen it, so I'll provide more detail as I did in the first meeting. But again, please interrupt me, and I'll try not to be too long-winded. A little bit about us as a company. So we're primarily a DC-based solar contractor. So we put solar on all kinds of buildings in DC. We've done really big projects like the one you see at upper left. We've done ground mount solar green roofs, residential projects, carports. We even did one of the first solar shingle roofs in DC. So we do all kinds of great projects. We are fortunate that we are a frequent partner of the District of Columbia's agencies that work on solar. So we've done a lot of work with Solar for All, both commercial and in some cases single family as well. In fact, many of the buildings you see here, these projects actually are providing community solar power for free to DC families that make less than 80% of AMI. So like the project up there at upper left, Abrams Hall, that's cutting the electric bills in half for I think about 75 district families. So we're really proud of this kind of work. It's triple bottom line, like the DC Green Bank, who's our frequent financier and partner. We believe in inclusive prosperity, which means that we try to split the revenues and the benefits equally between the community and our own firm. So we're a small and lean company, but that means we get to leave more in the community when we build projects. So again, these are just some projects. We've built dozens and dozens of projects like this. We're really proud of our team. And again, I'm talking about all this because this building, of course, will be for our business. We're unique in that while we have a team staff that works for us, again, we're relatively small, and we've made the philosophical decision to partner with a variety of subcontractors. I'm proud to say that almost all of them are MBE businesses. Our electrician, for instance, was born in Petworth. We have a lot of different folks that we work with, and while we have our own team and they do great work, we sort of believe that solar, like a lot of green industries, should focus on empowering people of all stripes to be involved in the green economy, and that's sort of how we're structured. So some of these folks are our staff, some of them are subcontractors, and we're really proud of the work we've done together. This is the building that we propose to build. I just want to flash this on the screen real quick, and then I want to talk about the context views and all the other stuff. But I suppose this is why we're here tonight. We wanted to kind of introduce our company to you and talk about that briefly. But yeah, this is sort of a rendering of what we propose to do. Just some basic details, and I'll show you guys a context shot in just a minute. We're proposing about almost a 30,000 square foot multi-level warehouse. That's what you saw on the last slide. What's unique about it is that not only is it going to house our business, we're actually going to take a very small part of the building, but it's designed to facilitate business spaces for other green building professionals, for contractors like ourselves that need a space. You can see here in the notes, we're actually going to have as many as 14 smaller storage spaces. Y'all probably know, but if you're a small business, it's often hard to find space to house your equipment and have, equipment, there to like unload trucks and store materials and park cars and stuff like that. And what we found is that a lot of people, like we have for a long time, are storing things in their backyards and self-storage facilities. We actually have a unit right down the street at Self Storage Plus. We really are proud of kind of this perspective where, the building's not really about us per se. We want to create an incubator for other green businesses, not only businesses that we know that can grow with us, but other new businesses that come along. And I'll show you some pictures of the inside that will reflect that in a minute. One of the things that's kind of neat about the proposal is that there's a little building on the site, which will be clear in a minute when I show the context photos. And one of the things that we're excited about is that we're actually going to keep that building on the site, and it's going to become the lobby for the larger building. That's actually the space over there on the right. You can see sort of an interior shot. It looks a lot like the buildings down at Union Market, and a lot of developers, contractors would come and knock all that down. But we think it's an important part of the history, and it's actually a resource because we hope to turn that into a space the community can use in some ways. Again, I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, but we're really excited about that detail. Just some more things that I know are important. We'll be keeping all trash and recycling and loading activities inside the building. So in terms of creating, a nuisance and noise and things like that, we're working very hard to kind of keep that inside the building itself. One of the things that we did that's, I think, unique is that we're actually, to make the building look more interesting than some of the other things on the street, the self-storage building a few doors down, we've actually put a couple, just two, family size residential apartment units on the street side. And that allows us to have windows and dynamism versus having a big blank sort of wall that you typically see on a warehouse like this. There's another thing we're looking at, and I want to be really careful talking about this. I want to get feedback and see if this is something that the community can support. But one of the things about the zoning is that we're allowed to build what's called a habitable penthouse on the roof of the building. And as you probably know, because of the way stormwater and green building regulations are written, which we're a supporter of, that space has to have a green roof on it. It has to be beautiful. So we thought, again, as a business that is very community driven and one that wants to reflect, our own interest in bringing people together, we'd like to create, with very careful constraints, a community gathering space, a space that can be rented on the top floor of this building. I know this is probably something that is more controversial than the rest of what we're proposing here, but I like to talk about it and get feedback and see if it's something that you could support, or if it's something that maybe we could put some guardrails around to make sure that it's successful. And again, just the goal here, I think, is that, we're just at the bottom here, you can read this, we're not trying to build, a castle for our little business. I think that's typically how this is done. Like, we want to find ways to kind of engage with the community and interact. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. This is a context shot, which is probably a good place to start. So the project site is right in the middle of the screen here. You can see that's the building there. Can y'all see my mouse on the screen here? No?
I don't
Yes.
see
Is
them
it
out.
where
Oh,
the
oh,
church is?
That's okay. I'll
yes.
just
Yep, we do.
describe
We
it.
do. Yep, we
I
do.
apologize. So it's this, I'm colorblind, forgive me, but it's this white building
Okay.
here. Can y'all see it here? In the white building in the middle?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So that's the site. It's about 7,000 square feet. It includes the building there, in addition to the lot that surrounds it. It's currently used by District Tree, which is a contractor that has a contract to maintain street trees with DDOT. We've been working with them. I guess they've been a tenant since we bought this property 18 or so months ago. And we're excited they would like to stay in the building with us. That's one thing we said up front. We said we believe in revitalization and community without displacement. So we said to them, hey, we're building this multi-level space. They weren't actually using a lot of this space. They're parking 2 or 3 vehicles, and they have some big trucks that go in and out every day. So they're going to take all those awesome tree bags and stakes and things and put them on the freight elevator you're going to see in a minute and store them on a higher level of this building. But you can see, so they're the tenant there now. That's one of their trucks in front of the building. We have a great community here, a great street. So we have Tony's Boxing Gym. We'll talk about Salim. We've worked with him, and he's very supportive of the project. He's over to the left. That's the west side. And then to the east, there's a little brick nondescript building that's a commissary for Raven Hook Bakery. And they used to have a stall at Union Market, but now you see them at farmers markets all over DC. So all those loaves of bread and pastries are all getting made right next door to us here. We've talked to Chris, who's the owner, in addition to a lot of the employees, and they seem, again, really excited about some of the collaboration opportunities and frankly, just, having another business on the street here to add to what they've got going on. And then, of course, Extra Space Storage, again, next door. We're a tenant there. We've had I think one unit there, sometimes two units, depending on what we're building around DC. So again, we've had the good fortune of talking to them as well, the staff that are there every day, and they also think this is a really going to be a great thing for the community. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So in terms of what we're proposing to actually do, and we'll show you lots of renderings and things like that. This is sort of a crude representation of what we're trying to do, but I think it's helpful in visualizing how the site would change if the development gets built like we'd like to build it. You can see, again, we're going to be keeping that wonderful old building as our lobby. We actually are hoping to find a tenant to occupy that space. If you've been to Eden's headquarters in Union Market, they've done something like this. They're not the only ones that have done this, but we're thinking, again, we want to talk to community members. We've talked, for instance, to a coffee shop that's interested in being in this space. So you can imagine if you're a coffee shop in DC with a few locations, you need a place that's in an industrial district where you can, roast coffee beans and do prep work. And that's the sort of thing that could be done alongside, a community-facing coffee shop itself. So again, like we're still working through the details on that, but that's a commitment we have. We'd like to, again, like not just wall this building off. We want it to be something that people get to use. But you can see the building will be quite a bit taller. The current building is about 1,200 square feet. It's 15 feet tall. The new building would be about almost, as I said, 30,000 feet and about 50 feet tall. And that's a zoning envelope that's supported by the underlying zoning. We will ask for a couple of special exceptions, which I'll talk about in a minute here. But I wanted to show you guys this. This is a good sort of place to start for context. I guess I talked about this already. So we've worked with Salim next door. He's great. We're actually going to help with some improvements to their grounds. We were talking about ways we could work together that would be supportive of their mission and the great work that they're doing. So we've talked about that, but they're exciting. We know each other well now. I know his dog's names, and he's a really great guy, and we really appreciate what he's doing, and we're excited to be a neighbor. Maybe he can teach me to be a little better boxer than I am, which is to say I'm not one at all. And then, of course, we see a picture of Chris, the proprietor of Ravenhook. That's a picture taken in the building next door. It's rare that you see inside that structure, but that's a picture from their website. So again, we've met with him, and he seems to be excited about what we're proposing. So in terms of responding to community feedback, we think we've done a good job meeting with our neighbors. That's an important start. But beyond that, we've worked really hard to understand what all of the city's planning efforts have asked businesses like ours that might come to this neighborhood to look at, making sure that we sort of uphold. I'll stop for a minute and say that I've personally been a resident of the district for about 20 years. My business partner is also a DC resident, and we're really proud of getting a chance to actually build a building that's our own, that's something that we can sort of put forward as sort of our little contribution to the city's business community. But we've really tried to uphold these values in everything that we do. But we're really happy to say that the goals of many of the city's revitalization plans, their planning documents for this area are reflected in kind of like what we're trying to do here. So there's a couple of recent small area plans that have been done. There was one done for the DC DPW yard that's north of the site, but there's also this Ward 5 Works plan. It's about 10 years old now, but as we understand from the planning department, it's sort of still the best indication of the way that the city would, and presumably the community with whom they consulted, would like to see things improved in the neighborhood. So again, like we believe that we have a lot to contribute here, but we can't really do it alone. So the idea, I think, that sort of unifies all these ideas. So you can see diversifying the economy, bolstering businesses, helping both new, emerging, and new businesses, promoting inclusive job growth, addressing nuisance, improving environmental stewardship. these are all things that we really believe are part of our company's DNA. So one of the things that we're really most excited about here is, again, this is not a building for us alone. We're going to have 13 or 14 other businesses in this space with us. Again, it's a contractor, maybe with one van. It's a coffee shop. It's someone who's been around for 5 years as a business, others that are new. And I'm proud to say that many of them will be MBEs. One is a woman-owned business. And not really all the slots are full yet, and we'll keep some of them open for folks that want to come in there. But we're excited about this because, we believe that this is a space that's not available to most businesses. They're like us. They're using, as I said, their backyard, or as we have 4 or 5 storage units across the region. I've talked about trash and recycling and loading. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I hope we have a fairly detailed plan for how we propose to have trucks enter and exit this building, and we've worked with DDOT staff to kind of come up with a good plan there. Environmental stewardship. Again, we're a solar company, so we're real big believers in environmental stewardship. The building is designed to be net zero energy, which means that it will use as much energy as it produces on site with solar. And I'll talk about some of those technologies in a minute. And then, of course, providing community amenities, providing gathering places and connectivity. That's sort of this idea about, we talk about making the building more permeable. We have this wonderful old building we're going to have as our lobby and a home for another business. We have this idea of what we'd like to do on the roof. And again, we're trying to, create dynamism. We're trying to we're in some ways marketing our own company as a community-based, focused business, but also trying to kind of like provide a space that other folks can use. I know there's a lot of really amazing businesses in Union Market and to some extent in Ivy City and elsewhere in the city, but we believe that there's an opportunity here to bring some really cool spaces to this part of the larger neighborhood. Again, a picture of the building just for context. So I talked about how we were going to be pursuing net zero energy performance. So one of the ways that we're actually be doing this here is you see those really cool like diamond-shaped shingles on the side of the building. Those actually are solar roofing shingles that we've previously installed. You actually saw them on one of the first pages. I'm going to show some close-ups of that in a minute. But again, it's very hard to make a 4-story, 5-story building, produce enough power to meet its needs on site. So we do that with insulation and really good HVAC technology and air sealing and other approaches. But the real important approach here is putting a lot of solar on the building. So we have solar on the roof itself, and then the sides of the building are actually going to be making power as well, which is I think will make a really striking, beautiful building that hopefully we can all think is really cool and be proud of. I'll show you some pictures of what this looks like in practice. Oh, here's a picture of the site sort of looking straight ahead from Mount Olivet Road. Again, you can see the windows. Those are residential unit windows for those 2 family-sized units I talked about. You can see that the big garage door, it's about 30 feet wide. We've tried to make it very beautiful. Again, it's not going to be closed off to the community. It's going to be at least visually, it's going to be a nice garage door with clear glass. We'll have safety glass there for a lot of reasons, but it'll be something that's really dynamic and sort of interesting. And then, of course, we have this really neat awning, this curved awning with green roof on it, which will be neat. And then, as you can see, if you know this site well, right now the entire frontage in front of it is a curb cut. So there's no tree boxes. Actually, there's a very small tree box on the right. We'll be I think doubling the size or tripling the size of the tree box you see on the right, and we'll be adding additional tree boxes on the left, the ones you see with trees in them. So again, trying to make the street greener. It's a friendlier place to be. It's more vibrant, and frankly, it's safer for pedestrians and for small time contractors like us and other folks that would potentially use the building. So here's that product I talked about the solar shingle that we're going to put on the side of the building. This is actually a slightly different color. The version we'll be using is more sort of blue-gray. But again, this is a product that we've installed. We were actually the second company in the US to install this in right here in DC. This is in Northeast DC, if you know where the Walmart is on Georgia Avenue. We actually took an existing 4-unit quadplex, not unlike what you have a lot of in Trinidad, and we put this new truss system on there and installed these really amazing solar shingles. It was funny because we wanted to try this product out, and we wanted to have like a perfect roof to try it on because it was a new thing for us. So we just said, hey, let's put it. We knew the person that bought this building, and we said, hey, can we try this out? And they allowed us to do it, and it turned out really well. But again, this is the product. It's very beautiful. It's functionally a roof. You can see, I don't know who that is walking. That maybe Marcos that's up there, sort of rappelling down it. But it's a really amazing product. It looks beautiful. It kind of shimmers in the light. We've actually had one of our installation crews hold some of these shingles up on the building, and you can sort of see they have on this site, they have this wonderful sort of iridescent character. Again, it's not going to be something that's made of hardy plank that's going to look terrible in 5 years. It's really going to be an amazing, visually interesting thing. This is some of the floor plans for the structure. So again, I apologize if I go fast. I'd be happy to answer questions about this. You can see on the left, that's our ground floor plan. So on the sort of the lower left corner is the footprint of the existing historic building that I showed pictures of the inside earlier. And then again, we're kind of wrapping that in a much larger structure. So elsewhere where there's a parking lot now, we have trash recycling, we have mechanical rooms. There's going to be storage for, I think, about 10 bicycles. There's 15 parking spaces. It doesn't look like 15, but if you look at the upper left, those are actually car stackers. Those are those cool things you'll see in parking garages where, one car will go on and it'll go up and they put another one on. And, that's the kind of thing that's going to be great for the tree company I talked about that's there now. They have a couple staff that come early. They just need like one car stacker and boom, 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 they lift them up. And again, I think that'll mean that they'll probably pay less than they pay now for a much better experience that also takes care of their vehicles and things like that. You can also see there's a truck, the sort of the footprint of a large truck that's shown there. So I'll talk about how we propose to get big trucks like that in and out of the building. But again, the benefit is that that big door will come up, the truck will back in. We have a choreography we can talk about for that. But again, we had looked at doing this on the street. Our preference from the beginning was actually to back trucks in. Initially, when we met with DDOT public space planners, they thought, this is not that long ago, that the roadway was going to stay the same as it is now. 2 lanes in each direction. They wanted us to park on the street side lane. And, sort of happy coincidence, the new bike forward road diet has been installed, and we're supportive of that. We think it's great for the street, slows down cars, it's safer. What it also meant is that because there's a turn lane and one travel lane in each direction, that we kind of had to go back to what we wanted to do initially, which is to back trucks up for safety. So you can see that truck coming in. The last thing I'll mention is that if you sort of look above those 2 cars that are facing vertically, there's a freight elevator. So that's a really big elevator. It's about 10 feet by, I think, 16 feet. I'd have to pull exact dimensions. And the reason for that is that businesses like ours, we receive deliveries of pallets and things like that. And again, to make this building work in a context like this, we'll really benefit from being able to take materials up into the building. I think there's a question. Kevin, do you have a question?
I do. I just want to, get to the meat of I think it's 1 or 2 areas of zoning relief. By the way, I'm loving everything you're
Yeah,
designing here, but obviously you're here because
yeah,
there's some aspects of this project are not matter of right. And so
absolutely.
you
That
need
is
some
right.
zoning relief. If you could, explain to us like what aspects of the design and how many pieces of, like which pieces of zoning code are you not matter of right and
Got it. Got it. And it's really good you said this
yep.
just now because this is the perfect slide to talk about that. So there's 3
Okay.
areas of relief.
Yep.
The easiest relief to talk about, which I think is very non-controversial, is that we're asking for relief from the rear yard setback above 20 feet. So what that means is that basically on a building like this, it was by right, we'd be allowed to have as you can see here on the left, a ground floor that is, that goes all the way to the back of the lot. And the ground floor is about 20 feet tall. But what we're
Mhm.
asking to do with zoning relief, and we're not over our lot coverage or our FAR, but we're asking to have, instead of taking a chunk out of the back of the building, allowing a rear yard setback above 20 feet. We're actually asking to keep that building all the way back to the back of the lot for an additional, I guess that would be 30 feet up into the air. So when you looked at the building, you'd see a big box rather than a box with a chunk out of the top right corner. We've talked to Salim, who manages the gym and manages the property behind us. He's represented that that's not an issue for him. He'd be the most affected by it again, but it's fairly non-controversial as we've been told. But again, there may be different thoughts here. So just briefly, that's the first area of relief. Just to talk about this just quickly, you can see our two residential units here. These are floors 2 and 3. You see all the different individual warehouse spaces. Again, those are for individual businesses. We'll take 1 or 2. The rest will be used by other folks that are small businesses like our own. This is the penthouse space. And again, Kevin, your question is very appropriately timed. I want to put a pin in this for a second because I think I tee up the BZA relief in like a couple slides. But this is the other thing I need to talk about with respect to relief. We're going to have EV chargers here. This is one of our installation crews. This is Arnold and Luis. They're brothers. They're amazing. Okay, we found the BZA slide. So we talked about the special exception with respect to the rear yard setback. I think that's fairly straightforward. I think it tends to be less controversial, as I understand. Of course, we'd like to hear from you about that. Now, the second two special exceptions, they're not variances, but I think they're things that require a lot more special care. They relate to what we're trying to do with the penthouse. So if I were to go back to those slides, you can see the overall building footprint again is much bigger. And what we have here on the roof is a much smaller space that's about 2,000, I think it's 2,500 feet. Again, served by a freight elevator, by a passenger elevator, by stairs. All that's accessible via that cool old building on the ground floor. And the idea here is that, again, it sounds a bit amorphous, but what we'd like to do, if we can, is to have like a community multi-use venue space. So that could mean ANC meetings. It could mean, yoga events. It could mean, a wedding reception venue that doesn't cost, like 5 months worth of pay for like a normal person, right? So we want to find a way, again, it's not something that I mean, we don't take it lightly. We know that we need to be a good neighbor, and we don't want to have a club here or like a bar, but we want to have again a space that is something that the community can use. It'll have to be carefully controlled. We have to think about security and things like that, and we're committed to spending time doing things like that. But you can see it's a very small space, and what's neat about it is that you can sort of see on almost 4 sides, 3.5 sides, there's a neat path with green roof plants and things that sort of go around the building footprint. So if you're in that space, it's surrounded by windows, you'd look out, it would be, again, not quite like a forest, but it would be a very beautiful green roof. These are large trees and shrubs. It's not like a little green roof of the sort you see sometimes with a few inches of sedums. And again, something that we think people would benefit from using in a lot of different contexts. So specifically, the 2 areas of special exception relief relate to this. They relate, number one, to having the kind of use, the flexibility and permissiveness in the use specific to having a venue like this, a space that's multi-purpose that can do all these different things. There can be unamplified music inside. Again, not a very frequent thing we'd want to do, but full disclosure, there could be catering. There could be, again, people wanted to like dance after a wedding, like technically with the zoning class and with this relief, they could do that. So, it's a space that, again, would be tightly controlled, but we're asking for relief again from the underlying requirement around needing relief for this in general. And then the second area of relief that's closely tied to this one I mentioned is the doing of this use on a habitable penthouse. So again, I guess it's a higher lift to say, hey, we want to, we also want to be able to do this at a higher level of the building. The benefit of that, of course, is that we have this extra space. We have to have a green roof. It seems like a shame to, just to have more storage space for folks like us. We're not there to enjoy these warehouse spaces. They're there to put boxes and solar panels and other things like that. And we want to find a way to take advantage of this neat space. one thing that's kind of neat about this, when we first, bought this property, before we bought it, we took a scissor lift out there, which is one of these neat things with like a platform that goes up and down. And we went up to about 50 feet above the ground and took pictures, and I could share those if you're interested. But you can see the Capitol building, you can see Ivy City. There's a lot of really neat things to see. I think Commissioner Rhodes has a question. I'm going to see if I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, a couple of things. What is the name of your company again? I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, we're called Flywheel. You can look us up.
Flywheel, and you do, what is the nature of your business?
Yes, ma'am. So we do solar installations on top of all kinds of buildings in DC. So we're a solar installer.
Uh, okay. And the Ward 5 Works that you brought up, that is pretty old. Um, the Ivy City small area plan is more recent.
Okay.
Um, that plan, Ward 5 Works, never came. Um, the community asked for more green space and stuff like that. That never happened. Nothing in that plan happened
Hmm.
that the community wanted, and actually, it's just words on paper, and it's just a document. Is we have the big DPW site on West Virginia Avenue, and none of us are allowed. The community is not allowed on that space, and so um, that's null and void.
We've
That's
read
null
that
and
plan
void.
too. Just I don't mean to interrupt you, but just to let you know, we read that plan also,
Okay,
and it looks like it's trying to do some things on the roof, kind of like us, like a greenhouse or something. But I agree with you. It's not designed to let people in.
right. And then you said, so this is going to be a space where you're going to have solar panels stored and cars stored, but then you want to use the roof. You're going to have two apartment units. Can you tell us is that how affordable those units going to be? How many square rooms? I'm thinking about a math problem. How many
That's
square
okay.
feet the units are going to be? Like how many bedrooms? Because a lot of the developers are doing small units, so we want to. If you're going to, first of all, if you're going to put two units, living unit where somebody can live, and then you're talking about having an event space, and then it's going to be a warehouse. I'm concerned about this is not my SMD, but we all work together, and because we're renovating Ivy City, like from scratch, we're making sure that we're being respectable for the residents that live here and folks that want to live here. And I'm trying to picture in my mind a warehouse right there on Mount Olivet, although there is some apartments across the street, like up from Kovacs, but I'm just concerned about the living, some people living there. How much square footage will each unit be? Like how many bedrooms? How big are the bedrooms? How many bathrooms? Also, will they have parking? Because there's no parking on Mount Olivet. So where would folks that will be living in the units? You said the residential units will be facing Mount Olivet
Yes, ma'am.
on the
Yeah.
Mount Olivet side, so there's no parking there. Then you said that this will be it's like a green infrastructure, green building, which we are like applauding. We want green infrastructure, we want green buildings, but how is that how is that matching with the the trucks you're talking about? Is the trucks coming in the building only for deliveries drop off and pick up. And um, also with the greenery, how is are they going to be protected? Because I'm not sure about solar, but are they going to be able to grow with the solar roof and all of that going
Yeah,
on?
those are great questions. I'll dive in, and if you feel like I've left anything out, please interrupt me or follow back up. So I think
Okay.
I have a lot of good answers, and I hopefully things that'll be will sound pretty good to your ears. But let's go back to let's start with the warehouse use. So I think it's important to, I guess, just to back up for a second. I guess our impetus for doing this in the first place really was to have a warehouse for ourselves, and we sort of knew in DC, it's to be honest with you, it's I don't we don't come for money. My partner and I, we're normal people, and it's hard to buy anything in DC. And again, we're the DC Green Bank helped support this acquisition. We didn't buy this by ourselves. Like they have financed this. It's hard to buy a site, and then these days, now that things are expensive, and to have a one-story building, right? So we kind of sort of how we progressed through this thinking, and I want to kind of take you to how we ended up where we ended up here. We knew we had to be a multi-level building because that was a way for us to take that really expensive land cost and divide it up over, multiple levels. So very early on, we realized that we had to have, if we were going to have a warehouse, we had to have multiple levels. And that meant that we had to have a freight elevator and also a passenger elevator, stairs, two sets of stairs, different kind of building systems. And then we sort of were at the point where we're like, okay, well, if I were to back up to the extra space storage. So again, our folks are there every couple days picking something up. And what's interesting about that building, and this is sort of similar to how our building we think will be used. You go there and there's never more than about 1 to 2 cars in the parking lot. Like sometimes first of the month, end of the month, people are moving in and out, they're storing things here or what have you. You'll see a few more cars. But I think we should count like maybe 6, 7, 8 spots, something like that. So what we think, based on the way that our business works, we have a lot of things that we rarely use, but we still need them. And most businesses that are like us are like that. I'll give you an example. So, our that nice crew I showed you, that's a good example. I took a picture of them in front of this new electric van we bought. But Arnold and Luis probably only go to one of our storage facilities maybe once or twice a week for 45 minutes. And they go to pick some stuff up. And otherwise they're in the field building stuff. And our business, like most folks, we give people free access to the vehicles to drive to home and back and forth. It works out for everybody. So we think that businesses will rarely need to be coming and going, but they need a space. They have traffic cones, they have caution tape they might use once a month, but when they do need it, they need to come and get it. So we think that we're packing a lot in here, but with respect to the warehouse use, we're not as worried about it being too taxing to the site because we have a lot of people that are not going to be there very often. And our electrician partner, our green roofing partner, two other small solar companies here in DC, other folks that have expressed interest to us that we know that we work with have kind of told us the same thing. So that's the warehouse piece. And again, I don't want to ramble on too long, but if we were to go back to this context view, one of the things that you notice about extra space storage is that, they tried to kind of make it look interesting, but they've got these glass panels on the front, these windows, and they have like fake storage units behind that. You can see like little fake doors that don't really go anywhere. I've talked to those folks. There's a door to get in there, but none of that is functional. But they did it because they wanted to have some dynamism on the street, right? The zoning code says, these various codes say you have to have windows to make the site interesting. And what we said was like, well, instead of building what they did, which is set back with the parking lot in front of it, let's put the parking inside behind this really cool door, and let's build additional space in the building between the street and the warehouse, and let's put a few units in there. And again, we thought about this. We thought about office space. If y'all want, we could make them office space. But the reason we went with again, to put spaces with windows in them that people can actually use, we went with residential because there are a few carve-outs in the zoning code that allow for residential in this zone, in the PDR 1 zone. The first is they allow, this is interesting, you can read about it. I could pull up the code citation for you, but they allow something called a caretaker unit, which means that it's kind of like an old school thing that was in the original like 1950 DC zoning code that they kept in the rewrite. But it basically allows one unit, one residential unit per site associated with someone who works in that building. So be a security person, we have to be careful how we interpret the use of the space. But that was where that idea came from. And, we know housing is not affordable. I don't have to tell you all that. You hear about how unaffordable it is to live in DC now. So what we did, and I'll go to, I apologize for rambling around, but I want to make sure you asked a lot of really good interrelated questions. I want to show you the floor plan. So what we did was, we said, okay, well, we're going to build, we have to put something in the front of the building.
Hey,
We're
John,
gonna
I'm going to
build-
jump in here real quick because as a matter of right, are you allowed? You mentioned there's a loophole for a caretaker unit. As a matter of right, can you have two residential units? This is probably what's the existing zoning for this lot? Is
It's
it
it's
PDR? What is it?
it's PDR 1. So to be specific, yeah, it allows
Yeah,
for one caretaker unit. It also
got it.
allows for an artist unit. Um,
Okay.
so Commissioner, to answer your question specifically, we said, look, we're going to put in a residential unit. We want to use this space. It would be really sad if we just made it like a tiny little unit. We're only allowed two, basically, based on the way the building is set up and what the code allows. So we said, let's make them nice. So they actually have, this is a very bad picture, but they have, depending on how you use the spaces, between 3 and 4 bedrooms. They're over 2,000 feet. They're really big. So the thought is, if someone who works for one of these businesses, they're playing a role where they're helping to manage the building, and they have a family, they could live in one of these units, and that it's specifically designed to allow them to live there. The other unit, we're sort of setting up as an artist live workspace. And again, that's because the code is very clear. We can't just build a fancy apartment or as many apartments as we want or condos. We have to be very starkly delimited by what the code allows. So one is a caretaker unit, that's allowed, and then one is an artist unit. But you can see they're pretty big, and I'm happy to follow up with you to send you detailed floor plans. You could take a look at them, but they're very generous. They're not like tiny little things. Just real quick, I know you asked about how all the uses fit together. So if you look at this, in many ways, it's two buildings put together. And I apologize for all this complexity and all my exposition, but when you're in this sort of this first level on the left, you can see the cool old building on the left, right? And then you can see there's this big parking area. So if you're using the warehouse, basically, you're going to drive into this space, you're going to move trucks in and out, you're going to park cars here and there, and you're going to use the freight elevator to take materials up and down, just like you would at the self-storage building that's right down the street. So in many ways, think of that like kind of like an isolated use. Now they'll have access to the stair core and the elevator, depending on sort of permissions and who has fobs to do what, but they're kind of like their own thing. And then the old building that I talked about, which I'll flick back to that while I'm talking. The little building is like the lobby, right? So it goes to, you'd enter that building. So on the other side, that's the front of the building you see in the back of the picture. So you'd come through a door, you'd walk through the space, it would be really nice. And then you'd see at the end of it, at the back, a passenger elevator, a nice stair going up. And that only goes two places. That would go to the residential units, just two of them, and it would go to this rooftop space. We share your concern about these things being mixed up. We want to be really careful that people are safe, that we don't feel like things are getting in, one thing's getting in the other thing's way. But we also were trying to find ways to not be like a little a little castle that's not connected to the community. I know you asked about the green roof. I think that was the last thing you mentioned, apart from the planning documents. But so I want to make sure I address that really quick.
John,
Yes, ma'am.
real quick, I have a more important question to ask, other than the green roof, which
Okay.
is cool in itself, but we can talk about that another time.
Okay.
The community benefits agreement that you had mentioned, that would be, what is the community benefits agreement? Is it the venue room? And are you all willing to help Brother Salim fix the boxing gym as part of a community benefits agreement?
Yeah, you're right on. So that's sort of the direction we went on. So we talked to Salim about it, and the idea is that we want to help him. It helps us too, frankly, if we're being completely honest with each other. We want to help him. He identified some needs. I said, okay, we're coming in. You don't know us. You've been in DC a long time, but how can we be good neighbors and help you? And what you're doing here is awesome. So we've talked about and are committed to helping him make specific improvements on the exterior of the building, for instance. So again, I could flick to that, but he has a gate that needs to be replaced, and we're talking about putting in like a nice gate that for him that's like automated, that's safe. We've talked about investing in a sign. So some of the things that he's identified are things that he needs. We're going to pay for them, and we will commit to that in writing and otherwise. I've committed personally, and we have to be neighbors and residents, so we'll definitely commit to that. Kevin, did you want me to
Thank you.
keep answering the commissioner's question, or should I?
Um, yes, continue answering. I have a follow-up question, but make sure you answer Commissioner's
Okay.
question.
Okay. And yes, ma'am. So the other question about the community space. Yeah, we don't want it to be empty all the time. So we want to have probably someone on our staff figure out how we can program it to do the most good, right? So I mentioned some things like I mentioned like having people can like if they want to have a reception there and they don't want to pay $15,000 in Union Market, like if we have someone that wants to have like, yoga once a week, if we have people that want to have a community meeting, we want, and our goal is to facilitate that. And we think it's the right thing to do. It's a community driven thing. It's good for our business because we come off as we should, as we want to, as someone that actually cares about doing right by the community. I hope that answers your question.
How many square feet will the community venue be?
I think it's about 2,500 square feet. I want to look at my Adobe file. I can tell you exactly how big it is. If you just give me 1 second. Um, can you all see my screen here? Did you see the screen change by chance?
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
It's just on the
Okay.
title page right now.
Okay, I apologize. And I'm sorry I'm taking all y'all's evening.
Yeah.
This is a
Uh,
complicated
yeah.
thing.
So one question while you're searching for a document
Yeah.
is, so you're asking for some permission to have, and I know some of the commissioners are going to want this because they're probably people are okay with for the occasional uh, site, what do you call it, like an event venue where, and from time to time, there is entertainment on site. Probably what they might be wary of is if suddenly like their permission ends up leading to like a club on a roof that's not what
Right.
they intended. So
Right.
can you explain that whether or not the type of permission you're asking it will not lead to that. Like I assume you still have to would go to Abra, or is it that you're not opening a permanent venue there? It would be the caterers from time to time that would have, like for instance, like when I got married in Easter Market North Hall, right?
Mhm.
They don't have in that venue. There's not a bar, but they have permission to have alcohol there, and the caterers have to come with a licensed, an Abra licensed bartender for the event. I just want to be sure because you could people might think that you're asking permission to have a bar there, but that's not
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, and we're happy to the extent that we can like write down our commitments, we're happy to do that. So I'd love to get consensus from folks on what they want to see. We don't want a club, we don't want a bar. But again, I want to be completely honest and straightforward
Yeah,
now. We're talking about it so no one's surprised. We think that it's very hard to like have any events in DC unless you're like a corporation or like a very deep-pocketed individual. And that's not how it always has been. It's not how it used to be, right? And
Hmm.
we think the fact that it's unaffordable, that like all these venues cost $10,000, $15,000 a night is just bad for DC generally. So frankly, like we would like with some frequency, we should talk about what you guys think is permissible, but we'd like to be able to offer that as something that folks can do. Not a club, but if they want to have a wedding reception or wedding, it's a very small space. I think it's allowed. I could get an exact count of how many people are allowed in it, but it would not be a loud, raucous space. And in terms of like making sure it's not, um, there are protections in the zoning code about that. So the provision that we're asking for relief from, no matter whether you're asking for relief or not, it doesn't allow certain things. It doesn't allow amplified or any music outside. It requires you to use intensive measures for soundproofing. But if, there's some nice couple that's in Trinidad and they want to get married and, they want to spend $15,000 down the street, I'd hate to tell them like, hey, like, I mean, again, we can create permission structures around how alcohol is dispensed. We're completely happy with that. But I hate to tell them like, hey, you can't have a band for an hour. You can't have like people serve alcohol. We would like to find ways that the community that you as their representatives feel comfortable with us having some of these permissions to do these things, but also we want you to feel comfortable that we're not going to like run away with it and be a bad actor. We don't want that.
What is the construction between? Is it like between the floors? Is it like poured concrete? I'm just curious how you do, because like I know you've got the artists unit. So the second floor has the caretaker unit. Second floor has the artist residencies. Then above that is the occasional wedding venue and event space. How do you maintain soundproofing between those? Is it concrete floors or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to go to the floor plan because we've actually thought about this. That's a very good question because it may very well be one of our staff that lives in the caretaker unit. So what we've done, I'm going to go to the floor plans. This will be very clear, but
Yeah.
the residential units are actually not directly underneath this space that you're talking about on the penthouse level. They're
Okay.
actually in the setback in the front of the penthouse. So if you take a look on
Okay.
your yeah, right. So on your left, you see the setback from the front of the building is about 20 feet, 21 feet, I think. That's more than is required by the zoning code. But the reason we did that is that that's coincident with getting the building that could occasionally be louder away from being above those residential units. So if I were to flick back, you can sort of see here, I've not scaled these properly, but if
Yeah.
I go back and forth real quick, you can kind of see that the residential unit is sort of outside. But to answer your question about structure, the building will be steel construction with very thick poured concrete floors over a
Perfect.
and the reason for that is that we're going to be storing really big things and
Hmm.
it has to be able to hold an immense weight. So the structure
Okay.
will be very robust by design, sort of necessarily. And then in
Now,
terms of soundproofing, I will mention one thing. So if you guys look at the BZA materials, we've uploaded some documents about passive house insulation, and that's one of the methods that we use to make the building energy efficient, but it also was incredibly good for soundproofing. So I can distribute that document to everyone on this call so you can read it. It's actually a story written in a newspaper in New York, but we couldn't find anything better. There's no study on this, but we've built passive house buildings before, and they are exceptionally good at keeping sounds from going from one space to another. Excuse me.
and apparently, in the California fires, most of the houses that have survived the fires have actually been passive house designs. There's
Right.
other aspects of the how they're built ends up leading them to be more fire resistant. So it's yeah. By the way, I do want to be respectful of folks' times, so I'm going to give you a 5 minute warning to wrap up.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
And sorry if I missed it, but what would be the anticipated traffic impact, or has there been a traffic study conducted? Only because I'm asking because Mount Olivet Road is now kind of a smaller space, and knowing that if you're going Mount Olivet towards West Virginia, like it's a one way. So like in the event of folks like kind of, let's say there's a community event. Um, I know parking may be an issue, but I assume that if a lot of people are turning in to park in the spaces that are available, right? Have you thought through what that traffic impact would be? And would there be kind of some kind of guidelines you have for that?
Yeah, that's a great series of questions. So I'll try to be brief. And again, if y'all have more questions, you can email them to me. I'm sorry, I tend to talk a lot. There's a lot of details here. So we have not done a traffic study for cars because we're providing more than the minimum number of parking spaces. It's probably as hard to believe. The reason we think we have enough for all the uses independently, but the reason that we think that we've anticipated a lot of the volume that may occur from any particular use is that um, even though we're not counting on sharing the spaces, in practice, we can use them in that fashion, right? So if things are double parked and things like that by someone who's managing the space, a lot more cars than 15 can fit in that space. I don't know if the number is 20 or 22. We expect a lot of people will take, ride hailing and other things, but the thing we've studied the most, I don't want to gloss over that. That's an important question we'll have to work out in depth. But we have worked with DDOT about how trucks will back into the building. I have a truck turn analysis as one of my exhibits here. It's at the very end. But suffice it to say, we've worked with DDOT such that we're going to make some commitments apart from the way the site is designed and the way trucks can turn in to make sure we're doing so safely. So, for instance, you were right to mention there's a lot of traffic some days. So we'll only have large trucks come between certain hours of the day, not during rush hour, morning or night. DDOT's going to specify times for us, but we can work with you on that as well. The other thing that's interesting is that they're going to, if we have back in a big truck like this, which actually doesn't happen very much, maybe once a week, we're going to be required to have a flagger, someone step out into the road with a vest on both sides, someone who's been trained and say, hey, traffic needs to stop for 12 seconds to allow this truck to kind of back into the space. One idea I told Salim about, which I think is kind of cool, is that we could get them trained, right? The young people, he's there. And if we're having a delivery every day, they can get paid to do that again, because it's interesting. They're there. It's a way to again, our staff don't have to be there. Our staff could do that, but again, we're just trying to be creative and find ways to interact with people that are positive. We could do a study on cars. We've done some analysis internally that we think we have enough parking for the different users, but I appreciate your concern. We want to think carefully about that. I don't mean to filibuster you. I hope I've answered your question though.
And I like that kind of thought around how to use it. I think my question around the traffic is just if you all can think a little bit more into that, only because Mount Olivet during certain hours is kind of bumper to bumper at times. So just kind of thinking through what that can look like. But I like that the truck analysis and that you guys are already kind of headed that path.
Yes, ma'am. We want to be a good neighbor. If we reflect poorly in this building, it's bad for our business reputation as a solar company. So what's different about us is we're not a developer that's you're never going to see again. We're going to be there every day. So we are strongly incentivized, apart from any agreement that we could sign with you, just in addition to that, for things to go well and for it to reflect well on us. For what that's worth, I'll just say that. Does Commissioner Rhodes have another question? I see your hand. I don't know if I can.
Oh, no, that was from earlier. Sorry.
Okay. All of that, that's really good
Yeah.
questions. I'd be happy to, I took down your names and I saw you on the ANC list. I'd be happy to put together some more thoughts on all these things. You've raised a lot of questions I feel like I've not adequately answered. Looking at community plans, there's been a lot of things that you've raised that I didn't get to, but we want to do a good job to respond to these things. And I'm also happy to have offline conversations. We can meet at the community, we can meet on the site, we can bring you some plans to look at. I don't know if you could give me some quick feedback. Is there anything in particular you'd like me to do in that vein?
Well, this is Commissioner Toseda Guzman's SMD. So we
Yes.
want to make sure that he's in the conversation as well.
Yes, and I'll mention we've met on site.
Okay.
He's seen our plans. We've talked.
Oh, okay.
He's
Okay.
had some suggestions for us. So we've worked hard to we've listened to him, and he's I think I'm supposed to brief him after MLK weekend on I think he's probably like you guys, he's probably very busy catching up on stuff. So I'm gonna give him an additional update on some of these new developments.
Yeah.
This is largely what he saw last year, but I'm gonna brief him again in person as well soon.
Okay, great.
So John, your BZA hearing is coming up the end of February 26th. So you would probably want to present to for a vote by the full ANC at their February meeting. I believe Commissioner Saucedo Guzman now wants also presentations to the committee of the whole. I don't know, I don't see that in the calendar, but perhaps one of the two commissioners here know what date is the commissioner of the whole meeting, the next commissioner of the whole meeting?
It's supposed to be um, the fourth Tuesday of the month. So it's at the end of this month. But we'll make sure that you have that date so that you can
Yeah,
attend.
because fourth Tuesday is next is actually just, a few days from now. So we need to confirm if this is part, because I know if the policy, and again, each new ANC can vote on the policy, but last year they were requiring BZA applicants to present to the cow before having them present to the full ANC for a vote in public. So yeah, we're getting jammed up on schedule here a little bit, so just need to confirm if that is the date of the committee of the whole meeting. So John knows he needs to be there on Tuesday, and he needs to get on their agenda and send him the link. And definitely, I think. I mean, by the way, I did text Guzman today, and he's on travel. So I think what we'll do is he definitely needs to watch this presentation, and then perhaps he can, have questions for John. And then, definitely we need to get that conversation. I think needs to occur really quickly so that any concerns or, and maybe this is perfect as is, but if there are any concerns that need to be raised, that needs to get worked out. I think the ANC's meeting public ANC meeting in February, but it's always the second Tuesday. So that will be the 11th. February 11th will be the ANC meeting, which is good because then that's 2 weeks prior to your public hearing. There's lots of times for the ANC to write up the report and get it submitted into the case record.
And we're happy to work with everybody to try to make sure we're checking boxes. So commissioners, I know this is not just like a normal thing that we're doing. We hope it'll be great, but it's also different and complicated. Are there things that you'd recommend that I do over the next couple of days or weeks to get together more information that would be helpful for not only for you but for your colleagues? And if you don't, we can email too, but if you have anything off the top of your head, I'd love to know what it is.
Nothing off the top of my head.
I would say for me as a newbie, and I know there's two other new commissioners as well, just kind of maybe a summary slide with just kind of what is being requested, and kind of maybe how it differentiates from the actual zoning policy itself, just so that
Okay.
we have an idea of what we're voting on. Like I see the idea, I see the images and all of that.
Yeah.
And if these are the kind of only two things that are being requested in general, kind of how that kind of differentiates from the actual policy itself. Like, what are we actually giving relief towards?
Right. And
If that makes
I
sense.
could do a better job with that. I mean, the slide I
Yeah.
just put up is exceedingly simple, and I probably should have had really detailed notes. So I'm happy to Kevin's probably thinking that's going to be like a 4-hour presentation at the rate that I
Yeah,
go, but
I,
I'm
you
happy to add more detail to that
yeah.
slide. It sounds like
I would say the ANCs will give you like 15 minutes at the public meeting. So you're going to have to really
Oh,
get to the point very, very quickly.
yeah,
And, you know, for instance, like one of your, you mentioned one of the special exceptions was for a rear yard setback. I think you need to have a slide that shows this is on the left-hand side.
yeah.
This is matter of right. This is what we want to do, and this is why it makes sense. You know, and have that visually. And then the other two special exceptions have to do with the event space on top. That's more of a conversation, but like, you know, they're not you know, the AC commissioners have a lot on their plate. They
Are
will
you
not have.
referring to the committee of the whole, or are you referring to the public meeting?
I'd say both of them actually.
Yeah,
They have a lot on their plate, and you know, I mean, this is why we have the zoning committee, is so we can give applicants like yourself a lot of time to get into it.
yeah.
But at the other meetings, they're dealing with all kinds of stuff. They're dealing with grants committees, transportation committees. Like,
Mm.
you know, if there's a violent episode in the neighborhood, they're dealing with that. Like, you know, like they're dealing with so many. There's a lot of things on their plate. They won't have time, so you have to convince people really quickly.
And
So
that's well taken. I think the challenge for maybe not just for me personally, but for like the sort of the nature of a project like this is there's so much going on. Again, because we're trying to not just build a stupid building that and hopefully something with a lot more interest and good outcomes. There's a lot to say, and I also don't want them to feel as if I'm, you know, just kind of glancingly talking about all this stuff and haven't thought about it. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I need to find a way to, and it may be that I send them materials in advance that they can peruse at their leisure. So
sounds good.
I'll look into that.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think this is an amazing project. I think this looks great. I think you're doing something different. And even if it turns out that there's a mistake in here that we're not aware yet, I applaud you for doing something much different than other people. I mean, I think the design looks great, and I hope it's very successful. Like, I think it's really interesting. I love the fact that you're, you know, hiding the cars inside, and you're providing artist space, and 3 to 4 family size. You're providing 2 family size units. Like, I right now I'm not seeing anything myself that makes me concerned about this. I think it's great. It's nice to see nice development occurring on Mount Olivet.
We appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I just want to say, we do know that what's going on in the roof is kind of different, and I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable about that. But I appreciate you saying that. We have tried really hard. This has been a very long pre-development period. We've tried really hard to build something that we're happy with and that we feel like could kind of give something back and be really reflective of our business's goals and what we hope to be as a company. So if you all have any more questions for me, please email me. But I'll respond to both of you via your ANC email addresses, and you'll have my contact information. And I will also send you additional comments and responses to the other things that I think that I didn't get to. But if you have more questions, please contact me after that.
Great.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate everybody. I need to sign off. I'm out of time. I'm out of time myself here, so I really appreciate everybody staying as late as we can. And yeah, I'll sign off. And John, I will follow up with you offline.
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody, be safe.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night,
guys.
everyone.
Good
You
night.
too. Cheers. Bye.